because to me, holding that responsibility while we are thinking of also other things. I mean, the trust that had been given to us might not be fully what you call is fulfilled to, I mean, according to our expectation. So living that responsibility is in a way like going away from the burden. But however, I think we have to keep in mind that as a servant of God, we will continue to be doing our works and activities along the line of serving Allah. Now, as I said, I officially left my profession in February, but now, upon the request of IIIT, I was asked to also help or assist the institute in sharing knowledge, whatever little knowledge that I have. And particularly, I believe that, as I told my students, learning can be in many ways. And one of the most important and useful and productive way of learning is through teaching. So actually, you learn through teaching. There are lots of things that you do might have given you new knowledge, directly or indirectly. So therefore, teaching is, in that particular sense, gives us opportunity to gain knowledge as well. So I'm today glad to have you as my what I call it, colleagues, I would say, rather than students or participants. And inshallah, we are going to work together in order to see how knowledge can be further gained and enhanced through interaction and through certain way of communication that have been forced upon us by COVID-19, or this has given us opportunity to gain knowledge. Right. As the first lecture, I think I just want to be very relaxed, and you can take your own time also. There will not be many things that I want to mention, but certainly there are a few things that I have put in the structure of our first class. I will use very basic PowerPoint to share with you. This outlines some of the issues that we are going to touch this evening. Perhaps here is evening, and elsewhere maybe morning or afternoon. Yeah. So this will be our approach. Now, since this is new way of teaching and learning, particularly to me, the platform is not new, but the use of this platform is to many of us new. We heard about this, for example, Zoom and Google Meet, but we seldom used it before. But now we are using it, and inshallah, over time, we will be more familiar in using it. I will, therefore, since this is new, bear with me if I have not been able to smoothly conduct the class, because I have to also look at the screen and find some of the commands there. And if I want to share some of the materials, then I need to also find the button there, and sometimes I may do some or mistakes. Huh? Okay, let us look at this. I want to share with you the basic outline of our discussion. Can you see from there?
Yes, Prof. You see it. Very nice.
You can see, yeah? So straight away, I go to this course or subject, what we call Islamic perspective of sociology and anthropology, some reflections. Actually, there the reflection should be as some reflections. Let me put straight away so that it will not be left later. Now, I will elaborate further on this, but for now, let me start by putting you or putting us in perspective. I would like to refer to the background of this subject as far as perhaps the institute is concerned. I quoted this from the appointment letter so that we will not be too far away from what is expected uh, by the institute of us. Um, so the context in which we are in, according to the appointment letter, the worldwide COVID-19 pandemic. So I cannot say further over there because maybe I will have to move this here. Has brought a radical shift across educational institutions to online classes, workshops, and conferences as new normal in teaching and learning. So the context in which we in, we are gradually developing into what many people call new normal, what we were not used to, we had to be used to from now onwards. And before it become normal, I think there will be some glitches, there will be some discrepancies here and there. I think we had to bear with it. The IIIT, that is the Institute East and Southeast Asia office, is pleased to offer remote learning opportunities through our online academic enhancement courses. I think due to that, then the opportunity is taken by this institute. These courses are designed to promote academic excellence through enrichment and support services for lecturers and instructors to teach subjects related to integration of knowledge. As we all know, the Institute is very much concerned about how knowledge should be seen in an integrated manner, and therefore, in that particular spirit, we should be able to assist where possible based on whatever we have, and in this context, maybe sharing knowledge through this kind of program. Our rich collection of books and resources will be used in these courses. This project is a collaborative effort involving reputable scholars, consortium of universities and colleges, and network of IIIT friends. So, as we all know, IIIT also has sponsored the writing of many works related to different subjects. And perhaps in this connection, I would like to also mention here, I was gaining also some benefit from this when IIIT also sponsored the writing of an edited book. And perhaps I can show you here the book that I edited. It was published in 2017, and the title of this edited book is exactly like the title of our subject here. That is Islamic perspective of sociology and anthropology, some reflections. So perhaps you are under the impression that we are going to use this work throughout. Actually, it is not. Yes, this will be one of the references that we can use. However, the main focus will be quite different, but this will assist us. I mean, the book will assist us in exploring further certain aspects which we are not going to touch on this. So perhaps what is relevant, most relevant here in this context is what I myself has written as first chapter, and therefore the first chapter will be part of our teaching material, and the rest I believe the institute will also facilitate you in getting this work or later on. So this is the context in which we are in. So as mentioned by our brother, this situation has been created, and the opportunities are there, and I think the institute is quick enough to grab this opportunity in order to spread the benefits from this situation. Now, normally in my context, I in the class, physical class, I used to have this in the class with my students. The first lecture normally will focus more on introductory aspects, introducing the lecturer, introducing the students, introducing the subject. So certainly we cannot have face-to-face introduction here in detail, but actually I have few questions, but I do not know whether this question will be able to be responded, whereby I can get on the spot response from the participants. For example, here, since the screen here does not display everyone, so I cannot see whether you can raise your hand or not. Here I can see only myself and 3 other persons. The rest I do not know how many, so I cannot really estimate the response because I cannot see that. So maybe later on, what I will do, I will create Google form. This Google form will contain these questions, which to me are very important questions for the lecturer, for the facilitator, particularly in the beginning of the teaching period, because he or she has to estimate and know what type of students that he or she is teaching. Knowing the background and also the kind of students that we have is important so that we can adjust many other things. For example, if I know that majority of our participants are coming from certain areas, perhaps by way of discussion and examples, all this can be tailored towards this, what you call is a fact. So never mind, but I just mentioned I will give this to the organizer later on, and by next week I should be able to see actually what type of audience that I have. Question number 1 is, you will see later on in the written form. How many of you have studied soccer as your major? All right. So let's say if we have 100 or 100 people, so how many participants out of these 100 participants are, or have graduated or have taken sociology or anthropology as their subjects or as their major before? And then the second question is that if they were not taking these subjects as their major, perhaps the second question is relevant. How many of you have been exposed to a certain extent to sociological and anthropological thinking? Because sociologists and anthropologists, they think in certain way. And perhaps if you want to describe that as sociological way of looking at things or anthropological way of looking at things, so that we need to know. So if majority of us or minority, only minority have been exposed to this, then perhaps we need to adjust how classes can be conducted, bearing in mind that this is the type of audience that we have. And then the third question, of course, how many of us have not been exposed at all to sociological knowledge? And perhaps we do not know. I believe they have heard about this, the term, but they might not, they might not have taken any courses related to this. So these are the three questions which, to me, as an instructor, are important questions to generate a kind of data that can facilitate me, that can give me a picture about the category of audience that I have. And I'm sorry that sociologists is normally like that. They want to base on data. So this is going to be given to you later on. Now, normally once I know this, then that will be a starting point for the subsequent stages in our discussion of the topics that we have been scheduled. Now, so that is the first part, introducing the students. I think myself, I was introduced already by our brother Shahran, so I don't need to introduce myself. So that is introduction of lecturer, introduction of students, and more details about students will begin through the responses that I expect you to give when I post Google form. I will discuss with the institute or the organizer how this can be done. Right. Now let us look at the subject. We have 7 weeks to cover what need to be covered. And this is actually a very short period, 7 weeks, 1 hour, each time we meet is very short. However, also in the first class, I asked these questions, and I asked my students also to write down here, and then on the spot, they will give me the answer sheet. What are the questions that I expect students to answer in the beginning before I start the lecture? Number 1 is, what do you have in mind when we mention this phrase, Islamic perspective of sociology? Of course, this question can be preceded by another question. Have you ever heard this phrase? For example, Islamic perspective of sociology and anthropology. There could be some people who have not heard about this at all. So, so perhaps that is the first question. And the second one is, if they have heard about this, even if they have not. Now, when they Islamic perspective of sociology and anthropology, what are the initial ideas that we have or that are in our mind once this is mentioned? And to an instructor like me, the ideas about the subject, initial ideas about the subject that the students have before they are exposed to classes, to teachings, to knowledge of this subject is important because it sets certain what we call is a starting point for us to know the extent of our knowledge of this subject. Again, if we are to base on data, we look at what is the response. If we know that majority of our participants, they already have some ideas, and these ideas are basically what we want to communicate, then perhaps uh, we can skip some of what we would like to teach, and that will also save some of the some time. Some time. Now, so that is one question regarding the subject. The second question is that in addition to what we have in our mind about the subject before we are exposed to lessons, another one is what we would like to learn from this course. So the first one is what we know. The second one, what we want to know. Now, you may ask, why is these two questions, why are these two questions important? Now, any science, any subject, any course is designed with certain limits. There are limits to what we can offer, and this is included in the course outline. The course outline defines the scope, and the scope sometimes does not include what we want to know. So the reality is that we want to know this, but on the other hand, the course outline does not include what we want to know. But if the lecturer knows that many students would like to know about certain things which are not covered by course outline, then in the course of interaction and elaboration, he or she can also bring in, wherever relevant, what students want to learn, even if what students want to know is not covered by the course outline. So this is a kind of the strategy in the beginning in order to see the gap between what we want to know and what the course can offer. So the filling in the gap is part of our consideration if we know. So again, perhaps this will be posted to you later on, and maybe it will be easier for me to see when the responses come to me in the form of, let's say, when we normally generate, it can be in the form of Excel sheet, and from there we can see the responses. Right. So that is as much I want to say about how we are going to do and also to communicate, to conduct the class based on, among others, filling the gap between what the audience wants and also what the course can offer. Now, so that is the first part of an overview about the course. Now let us look at the course itself in greater detail before we start. Perhaps today, if we have time. If we don't have time, then the first topic will be discussed in the next class. Now, let us look at what the course can offer. So here, I think I do not know whether you have been given what you see. Can I know? Do you still see the slide now?
Yes. Yeah, I see.
Oh, see. Uh, where is it? I mean, what page is that?
First page, Islamic perspective, the title.
Oh, still the first page. Oh, let me see. Okay, so this is one of the things that we have to face, that the lecturer is not used to this, and suddenly the what you call this the full screen appears to me, and then I also cannot see this one, but never mind. So as I said, introducing the lecturer, introducing the participants, and also introducing the subject. Now, participants' exposure to sociological and anthropological knowledge, this is what I was mentioning to you, the three important questions to generate data about the type of uh, students or the categories of students. So here, actually, we straight away apply sociological way of knowing. Sociology as a science that is what we call social science. Being science, it must be based on facts. And facts, one way of collecting facts is through survey, either on the spot or uh, through what you call this, uh, online survey and so on. But now we cannot see the responses, and therefore we cannot estimate the type of our participants today. Never mind, that can be later on. Now, since this title or the title of this subject is what you call it, Islamic perspective of sociology and anthropology. So the first one is exposure to knowledge of sociology. The second one is exposure to Islam. Because for us to speak or to talk about Islamic perspective, there should be a certain extent of knowledge of Islam and what type of knowledge of Islam and the perspective about Islam that we have that has enabled us to connect uh, social science with religion, because this is a question of trying to break the dichotomy and also the division, the thought that has divorced religion from knowledge, science from revelation. So therefore, we need to understand revelation. We need to understand modern knowledge, like modern sociology. And I think Al-Marhum Ismail Raji Al-Faruqi, in his book, Islamization of Knowledge, Gender Principles and Work Plan, mentioned about this. That is in the 12-step strategy of trying to integrate knowledge, the two important measures and actions should be, one is mastering modern knowledge, mastery of normal knowledge, and the second one is we also need to master particularly Islamic tradition and so on, or Torah, and as well as, of course, grounded in Islamic ideology. So again, based on the facts, we need to know this, but we skip that. Now, the third one that I mentioned is participants' exposure to IPSA, whether this is the first time that you have heard about this, but if you have heard, what idea do you have about this? And then, what do you want to know? What do you want to know about this subject, so that we can try to see if there is any gap, we try to deal with it over time. Now, based on that, what will the course offer to participants? So now let us look at, you keep with you the ideas that you have about this subject. You keep with you what you want to learn from this subject, but since we cannot get the response on the spot, I go straight away to look to tell you or to elaborate on what the course can offer to you. So this will be the initial background, and overview about the course, and later on I will explain to you how we are going to deal with the course. In the meantime, I will ask Brother Shahran to remind me of the time. Suppose we have reached certain, what you call this, if we have reached the time, then you have to remind me. Can you, Brother Shahran?
10 minutes more, Prof.
10 minutes more.
10 minutes for the lecture, and after that question.
For the lecture, okay. So what will the course offer to participants on this? Let me go to the next one. Oh, I have not opened it yet, but never mind. I will open it now. Now, what can you see here?
Yes, what will the course offer to participants?
Oh, that also.
Yeah, that also.
Oh, okay. Because
Go
I'm
to
shifting.
course outline and description.
Okay. Okay, let me try to get this now. So since you have experience using Zoom, every time we want to share certain thing, we need to click share file or what?
Yeah, we need to get out first and then share again.
Oh, okay. Okay, let me stop sharing this one. Now,
And share a new one.
all right. Can you see now?
Oh, yes.
Okay. So as you can see here, this course Islamic perspective of sociology, some reflections. We also have another or other courses with Islamic perspective. For example, creative thinking from Islamic perspective, knowledge management from Islamic perspective, Islamic perspectives on 20th century English literature. So here the word perspectives, and also perspectives, this might have raised some issues. And I have addressed the issue of terminology here. In the book that I showed you just now, this is the book, Islamic Perspective of Sociology and Anthropology, Some Reflections. So after I have gone through some of the literature, I find the use of Islamic perspective to be numerous, and therefore it was quite important for me to take that issue, elaborate further, and write something on the use of the terminology. For example, if I pose a question to you, is it Islamic perspective in singular form or Islamic perspectives? Yeah? In plural form. So this is one of the issues. If you read literature, both are used. But what does it mean when we use Islamic perspective in as a single or singular, and also in the plural form? So all this will be part and parcel of our discussion later on. And if we are to deal with this, perhaps one of the references that we can rely on is the first chapter of the book that I have mentioned. So this is one of the many issues in that we need to address. Now, I will not go to this, but let us have some impression about this course, what this course can offer. I am trying to enlarge this. Can you see the enlargement of this? Brother Shara?
Yes, yes, very nice.
Yes. So you can read also from there, right?
Yes.
So I go to the page from the write-up that you have prepared. So here, the short write-up on each of the courses that are offered by the Institute, and one of which is Islamic Perspective of Sociology here. So if you look at the description, maybe I can enlarge it further so that you can get some kind of an overview and initial idea about this course. This course provides a critical introduction to sociological and anthropological knowledge from Islamic perspective. It analyzes the development, contents, and nature of conventional sociology and anthropology with the view of highlighting its strengths and limitations. This effort is hoped to enrich students' comprehension of such social human sciences. So this is part of the course description, but the point that we want to highlight here is that part of our effort to try to understand Islamic perspective is to engage also with modern sciences, modern social sciences, particularly sociology in this context. Now, engagement is the word that we used, and through engagement we can do a lot of things. The specific tasks that we can do, for example, comparative study of the terms used, and the rest. This will be dealt with later on. Yeah? Now, so this is an overview of that, but in the greater detail of that, let us look at what would be the scope of our course. So I'm going to maybe here. So you can, I do not know whether you have been given this.
Not yet, but it's okay, Prof. We will give them.
Okay, if participants or students are not given yet, maybe I just display this for now, and later on when you give it to them, then they can look at it. For example, the first part I mentioned just now. Now, this is done to explore the gap and missing dimensions in the current study of society and man, and how Islam can offer input and alternative or additional perspective for understanding and analyzing various social and human issues. So if you look at this statement, the approach that we take is not disengagement, it is engagement, meaning that we recognize the strengths and the good points or the advantages, the merits of modern sociology. But at the same time, as we are going to deal later on, there are limitations also with regard to Western sociological and anthropological knowledge. So therefore, there is a need for us to enrich the current knowledge of society by offering the input in various forms from Islamic sources, for example. What Al-Quran says about society, for example. So Al-Quran is one of the sources of knowledge. But in the body of knowledge, the modern body of knowledge in general, and knowledge of social sciences in particular, there is no consultation of what Al-Quran says or what our revelation says. Now, so therefore, Islamic perspective try to enhance knowledge of society by identifying the gaps which need to be filled from the various sources. And in our case, we try to look at some what we call is inputs, contributions from Islamic sources, which can make our knowledge of society better. Now, so I will skip that, then go to the next one. So this is just to show you, maybe when you get later on, you can learn also what would be the learning outcomes of this subject. And I just show you now the topics that we are going to cover every week, so that before you leave this class today, at least you have an idea that this course is going to cover what is the objective of the course and what is the scope of the course. Now, so looking at this, I just want to mention here that actually I just want to reduce all these topics into 3 big questions. So, but you have to remember for tonight, very easy as a output and as the result of our interaction today. So if people ask you, what do you get from tonight's class or today's class, you can say, I know that the course Islamic perspective of sociology, some reflections will cover or will answer 3 major questions. 3 major questions. So you simply remember these 3. Number 1 is why. Number 2 is what. And number 3 is how. So in addressing each of these big questions, we will be dealing with some other sub-questions, including who and where and so on. But these are the major questions, the answers of which later on define the scope of this course. So in order for us to cover or to have knowledge of Islamic perspective, we need to know the answers to these 3 questions. So therefore, our subsequent classes will be dealing with these 3 questions, starting with why IPSA. Why IPSA? IPSA means Islamic perspective of sociology and anthropology. So in the next class, we are going to elaborate further and start the first topic after this, an overview of the course, that is why IPSA. In other words, why is it important to have Islamic perspective of sociology and anthropology? So I think with that, I would like to conclude and summarize that tonight or today's lecture is meant for giving you an overview of the course, the big picture about this, and the scope of the course, so that you have an idea. And as you leave the class, you can also do your own reading, which can be tailored towards answering these 3 questions, so that whatever you gain from your own self-reading would be able to be shared when we have our discussion on each of these 3 big questions. So thank you very much, and we open for any discussion.
Thank you so much, Prof, for a very comprehensive introduction of the course. I think by knowing the interest of the student, the level of engagement, so we can tune the course to be more effective. But this is a unique situation now where we are. So we are from diverse background. So I mean, one of the motivation that we have by offering this course, remember in the old days, we can go to the mosque and learn without any restriction. We just sit there and listening to the scholar, whatever knowledge they impart. So we are the same boat now. We just want to learn, although we are from 0 to 110%. Maybe we have someone among us who are expert in sociology, or some are zero knowledge. But alhamdulillah, I think we will benefit a lot from Prof. That's all. So as usual, if you would like to ask question, we can see in the chat, or you can raise your hand on. I can allow you to unmute yourself, but sometimes the noise come unexpectedly. So if anyone want to ask question, go ahead. I think I will allow now, and we can unmute ourselves. Allow participants. Can anyone unmute yourself? Yeah, I'll see Prof. Ismail there. Prof. Ismail, you can go ahead.
Okay, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you so much, Professor Hazizan. For me, I think the way I'm looking at this series of courses is that we come from different backgrounds, and what we are trying to, because when they sent us these topics from the beginning, we made decisions on which courses we wanted to attend, and this was one of them. And so some of us are sociologists, some of us are not, but we are really interested in the connection between these disciplines and Islam and the Islamic perspective. And so I think what we are expecting from the professor is to give us maybe the basics, some basic frameworks for sociology, but also let us know how Islam is connected to sociology, because we chose these topics because we wanted to learn more about that connection between the disciplines and Islam. And so I think it may be difficult to prepare for just sociologists, or so that's what I wanted to comment. I didn't have a question as such.
Prof, can you unmute yourself, Prof? Okay.
Can you hear me?
Oh yeah, okay, can.
Yes, thank you very much, Brother Ismail. Even though I can't see you where you are because
Oh, sorry. Let me. Yes.
no, it's okay. Even if you raise your hand, I cannot see also.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, because
Now?
only no, because the screen does not display all, only three.
Oh,
Maybe there
okay.
could be some button over there which I may, but I do not know. So far, I fail to what you call this? Or maybe here gallery. Oh yes. Huh? Where are you? Can you?
I'm
Can you?
here.
Oh, there, brother. You're from
Yes, yes.
Professor Ismail. From where?
From Uganda, Islamic University in Uganda.
Oh, are you? Are you?
Yes, sir.
I went there. I don't remember what year. Last 2 or 3 years. Okay.
Yeah, I think you
Thank you
our
very much,
place, yes.
Professor Ismail. For your question, I think that is very legitimate question. As I anticipated this because, as I said, when I suggested that I get some real data, real hard data on the background of our participants, the purpose was to know how many of us, or what is the percentage of those who are having sociological background or anthropological background, and those who do not have, and those who have not been exposed at all. So really, the main purpose was for me to estimate and understand what kind of audience that I have. At least if I know different categories, and certain categories constitute certain percentage, then even if we cannot deal with all issues satisfactorily because of the diverse background, at least we are aware of the limitations of our class. That is number one. And number two,
Sure.
I'm really thankful, and also would like to thank you I appreciate your suggestion that perhaps I can give you a general framework. And really what I plan to do, and I have already in my stock, that this is the approach. eh? So let's say knowing very well, assuming that people don't really have knowledge of sociology or don't have enough knowledge of sociology. And of course, some might be expert in sociology as well, but
Yeah.
but given the situation that we are in, perhaps
Yeah.
the better way is focus on something that everybody know. So if we take the basic, then the expert know, the new people will know, also the people of the different degree of knowledge of sociology also know. So really try my best to only present the framework for Islamic perspective and how this might
Yes.
working in the context of integrating Islamic values with knowledge, and I think that the conceptual framework will be very useful for us to see how Islam is connected to science. Inshallah.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
sir. Thank you, Professor. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Prof. Ismail, Prof. Hazizan. I think this subject, sociology, is very interesting because now in this day and age, we are facing so many flood of news, changing in society, changing in the way we live. So by looking at things more practically and academically will help us in many ways. Prof, before we end, do you want to say a few words or 1 or 2 minutes before we close our class?
I just want to first of all thank the organizer for having trust in me to have my new friends, and I really feel good when I see my brothers and also sisters all over the world, and I'm really I feel very good now, even though I have retired. Now I have my students also. That is number one. Number two, thank to all participants who are able to join this class. And please, as I used to say to my students, we are all students. Huh? We are all students. In Islam, learning is from cradle to grave. So we are all learning. At the same time, believe me that we are all also teaching in one way or another. When I use this platform, let's say Zoom, to communicate with my students yesterday and also last week, you know what? Certain things I am not able to know, and this is related to the platform. And the students simply guide me, sir, you just click this one and then enable this one. You see how? So in that particular context, I am learning from my guru. So you are all, so you might be guru or you might be teacher in certain respect, and the little knowledge that I have, uh, I will share with you, and the more knowledge that you have, you will have to share with me also, either technical knowledge or substantive knowledge. So with that, I think all together we can consider ourselves, if I am officially regarded as a teacher, I am actually the what you call it, learning teacher. If you are all regarded officially as students, you are actually teaching students. So the learning lecturer, the teaching students. With this spirit, I think we can revive the spirit of Islam that seeking knowledge is obligatory upon us all the time, inshallah. So thank you
Thank you.
very much for the organizer and also for the participants. Thank you.
Thank you
Assalamu
so
alaikum.
much. Salam. Thank you so much, Prof. Just for tomorrow night, as we have mentioned in our email, that we will have a very distinguished speaker, our president, Dr. Hisham Al-Talib. He'll be speaking from Virginia tomorrow night. He is, in his time, it's 9 o'clock in the morning. Ours is 9 p.m. So please invite all friends to join us tomorrow night. And of course, we have 5 o'clock class. on English literature. Be very interesting to listen to Professor Mahmoud.
Okay. One last thing I want to mention. I have to apologize to all of you. I can see also here some incoming what you call this questions, but I cannot address now. Perhaps I will ask the organizer to print it and give it to me, and then I will see some of this might be addressed in the next class, inshallah. Sorry
Yes,
for that.
we'll print it out and we'll forward to you. Next
Thank
session we'll address, we'll select the question.
Thank
Okay,
you.
then till then we'll see you tomorrow night, inshallah. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi
This
wabarakatuh.
is for us, but for them maybe afternoon as well. Thank you. Bye. Hello.